Welcome back. This is part 3 to the MPC Shuttle Tydirium model kit. Alright, so this model kit is created by MPC. It is retired, and you can only find it on eBay now. You can get it for about $50 to $75 on a good day. You will have to watch it for a little while and make sure you get a good price. Okay, you can see here I've lit the model and this is all finished. I've also done some other models, and we're going to get back to the video walkthrough. We were to the wings. I was starting the weathering detail. So let's get back to it. The weathering details. This is the runoff and like the rust coming down. Whenever you think of the Shuttle Tydirium from a movie, these details are probably what make this model so memorable and so realistic, is these little runoff things. They were very apparent on the Millennium Falcon. Every little raised detail had a lot of this coming down from it. That's part of the just the awesomeness of the old Star Wars models, is they really paid attention. They made it look lifelike and worn. All right, so you can see here I've taken every raised detail, add a little bit of runoff from every raised detail. Some of the big ones get a lot more. These are the undersides of the wings, and the undersides of the wings, they go downward, like towards the connecting part of the wing. They do that because whenever they're folded up, everything runs down towards the earth. And if you study photos of the original model, that's what you see. That's the only thing. That's like with the Millennium Falcon, they all go outwards to the edges, and you have to pay attention to the underside as well. All right, so this is the weathering details for that. These are all the other parts that I need to do detailed weathering on. So there's a lot of work ahead. All right, so these are this is the next wing I did. You can see some long streaks in there. It's nice to have one or two really long ones. Just get creative with the runoff and try to go with references. The references aren't going to be enough. So you have to create a little bit of your own for this. But that makes it fun. All right, so moving on to the top fin. I've noticed in the studio references, you can usually see that there is one long trail from a thing in every single panel. In every single panel, you probably have one long run and maybe one or two short ones. So I try to keep that in mind, and you kind of see that one is enough. If you do two, it starts to look overdone. Also important to get trails coming down over here. And here's the two fins together. There's some blue right here. I don't know. That's just from the camera. That doesn't actually show up on the model. You can see here, these are both fins modeled. It's nice to have them side by side when you're working on them, because it helps kind of keep it look the same. You don't want one side to look too out of place. So next part, after we finish the weathering details on the wings, we moved on to dremmeling. So this is the display stand it comes with. They do not cut this little thing out. I don't know why. There's no way that this ship is going to stay stable without cutting it out. So you do need a Dremel or something that will cut through there. This is the base. And also noting that this side, this is an edge, and it's easy to overlook, but it does show up. So you do need to paint every little edge, the back edge as well. All right, so here it is, dremeled out. I've also drilled holes right here. They actually had a really good reference for where the lights are supposed to go on the bottom. It's almost like they anticipated someone trying to light this. So here it is cut out. There's the 2 light holes. I did it really carefully, not confident that they had lined it up perfectly. So they did line up fairly well, and I had to make the hole pretty big because I broke it down. I'm kind of new to lighting a little bit. I'm not like super experienced. So you either have to poke a hole through the plastic to get the entire LED through that hole. The hole has to be pretty big because some of these LEDs are fairly large. Large rectangularly because the ends are where the leads are soldered onto. So the holes have to be fairly big. I think I used a nano or pico. I think a nano LED to get down through there. So it wasn't a chip, and thank God I didn't do a chip because I would have had to do a huge hole. The chips are like twice the size of the nano, pico, whatever. So here we have the 2 holes. I had to drill them fairly large, and here they are actually inside. I just kind of curved the wire and molded the wire. I didn't have to use any glue. I always try to use glue very sparingly whenever I'm working with the LEDs because you don't always need to use glue, and sometimes glue can actually destroy your LED. I've never had that happen to me before, but I've heard it can mess up the connection. So there it is. I have a video of it blinking down there, but that's why I took that picture. All right, so here we have a trough. As I was saying, you can either poke a hole to feed the LED through the plastic, or you can dig a trough to feed the wire through, and you can sandwich the wire. And so for the wings, I decided that I was going to be digging troughs for the wires. I'm not even sure it's possible to do holes without showing, without making the wire visible, or without making the hole visible in this model. You can see here it's being fed down there. I had to continue this trough a little bit past the edge. So here it is mocked up, just kind of getting a handle for what it's going to look like. This is just a fun photo. Here it is from that bottom. This is where the wire is going to be fed. All right, so the kit provides these little notches on this main body part, and they put these notches there to prevent the wings from going too far. And it's almost like these notches are too big because it just prevents the wing from going a little bit further than where it prevents the wing from being able to go how far it should go. It stops it just short, I think, of what is actually accurate. So I was like not having that. I went ahead and dremeled these things off. There's really no need for them to be there. The wings fit very snug without them. I think they just were providing that as a safety issue. Maybe, I don't know. But if you're rough with it, maybe that's good. But I do not recommend keeping those on there. So go ahead and Dremel off every single one. There's 4 of them. That's why these peg, I don't know, what are these things called? Like these grabber pincher things. That's why 4 of them only are halfway with this arc. They're not full circles. There's that notch there, and it prevents them from folding all the way up and folding all the way down. And it looks a little odd if you don't cut them off. So here they are all the way off. You can see my circuit board right here. I ordered this circuit board from modeltrainsoftware.com. It's Evans Designs. They're in Colorado. They custom built this by request. I requested 5 LEDs, synchronized blinking, slow flash, I think 5 seconds in between the flashes. And that's how it is in the movies. And the 2 underbelly lights are nano lights. They're not chips. The wings are chips for really a brighter flash. So they made that special for me. They said they've never done that before, and they destroyed a few circuits overloading it because typically you can only do 4, and with 5 it was too much. So I don't know how they did it, and I wish I did, because I feel like I could. I almost got into trouble and wouldn't have been able to fix it. But anyways, moving on. Here is the peg. No notches. You can see here they were both dremeled off. I would recommend dremeling them, not filing them, because it would take way too long. All right, so here, this is where the wire is being fed through. Oops. Where are we here? Okay. All right, so here I was analyzing the pegs, because lighting this wing, these folding wings, is going to be very tricky. And I was really trying to study it, trying to figure out how to wire these wings without the wire showing and without interfering with the workings of this rotating wing. And it gets tricky. So my thought was either to dig a hole and just kind of go straight into it here and then come out of it there, and then just drill a hole through the middle part of here, but then it wouldn't be really holding on to anything. It would just be empty, and I'm not sure if that's possible. You might need all 3 of these connectors. So I decided not to do that, and I was laying in bed. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's how you do it. So the writing right here is what I wrote in bed thinking about this thing. I couldn't go to sleep one night. I was thinking about this too intensely. So you do a trough. I decided not to do holes because the hole would probably just eat through the whole thing. I don't know. So troughs. I had to sandwich the wire. And so this is what it actually ended up looking like after I tried it out. And this is perfect. You can't see any wires. It's all hidden. And it's not going to mess up with the rotations. So here you can see the trough that I dug. It's gone into the circle, and then it comes down. It feeds into a trough on this little insert, and the trough extends the whole way and feeds into the wing, because the wing is empty space in the wing. There you can see the trough, the wire coming out. There it is again. Here's a good shot of the little peg thing. You can see I had to drill a little bit right here for the wire to come out of the trench and into this trench. And by the time it gets in here, this is also cut out right here, a little hole. So by the time it gets in here, it doesn't matter what happens to the wire. It's all good. So you can see I did that to 2 of the pegs. This is me preparing to dremel there, giving you a little shot. This is after. You have to be really careful and not dremel too far, because you want to keep this grabbable for that thing. You can see it can grab it right here, it can grab it right here, and it can grab it all the way over here, the whole way on that side. So just be really careful. Don't dremel too far. You don't want to ruin anything. You don't have to dremel too far because the wires are so small. All right. Next problem I ran into. This chip LED was actually too wide for the wing. You can see it extends past this gap. So next problem solution. Okay, so here it is. If you put the wing on, this is how far the gap is, which is unacceptable. Unacceptable! So here you go. I had to create a little notch where the wire comes through. I'm going to go back and paint this wire so it blends in camo. But what I had to do was very, very, very carefully dremel a ditch right there and a ditch right here. But this is where you get into like dental school drilling. You got to be very careful drilling these because you don't want to poke through there. And that, I think, is the only way to get a chip size LED sandwiched in between the wing right there. And there you go. It works really well once it's done well. All right, so this was the next part. This part was also tricky because if you see here, this is not the side of the wing that you want to be fitting it on. With the other wings, I was able to fit it with the side that has this large barrier. But you can't do that if you're lighting with the fin, so I had to pull it over here. You've got to keep this in because I wasn't sure how long the wire was going to be, and I needed to make sure I had enough wire to do this. So I've got the wire over here, the chip, and I'm going to mark it with a pencil where to start drilling. Here it is. It's all the way up there. This was a little interesting tidbit. So this is an angled drill. It's like a triangle tipped drill, wedge. So you want to do it from the inside and add an angle to have as little of the hole showing as possible. I didn't do it on the one before, and I was like, oops, but I did on this one. So you want to do it from the inside at an angle. You have that wire coming through that hole, and it's barely visible. Here it is with the wire coming through. You can see the chip LED is actually fairly large compared to that gap. I've gone ahead and dug a trough, and this is like do a little bit at a time, pull away, see if it's any good, do a little bit more, pull away, do a little bit more. Lots of trial and error, or not trial and error, hopefully not trial and error, but cutting too little is better than cutting too much. Yeah, so here we go. We fitted it in there. I've got a trench on both sides, a ditch, I guess you'd say. And here is the battery switch. This is what turns it on. And my plan for that is to put it in one of these landing gear compartments, because you can see the circle here. There's actually a really pretty much identical circle in the landing compartment. So I thought, I could put the switch in there and it would look very similar. You can see I'm pointing to it right there. There it is. That is perfectly cut. I did it, cutting too little better than too much. So it is perfectly nested in that little circle. No glue is needed again. I didn't want to use glue, and it ended up being a good thing I didn't use glue because I didn't think about this beforehand. But when you put the top and the bottom on together, when you sandwich that thing's not going anywhere because it is pretty close, pretty much sandwiched tightly in between the top and the bottom. Here it is from the back. So this is me painting it black. Kind of need to do 2 or 3 coats because I did not want to airbrush it. I wanted to put paint on it directly so it didn't leak into the cracks. All right, so here we have the back. This is what it's going to look like. I'm going to not glue the back on. I'm just going to have it resting in there. This is where I was testing that out, seeing if that's possible, and it was. So I was really happy about that. One thing I did notice when I did this was that the overhang right here, this overhang was not painted. And I was really bummed that I missed that. So I had to go back and paint that white gray, clear coat it, weather it, and here's the engines. I decided to do the engines. At first I was thinking I wouldn't do the engines because I'm never going to look at it from behind, but then I changed my mind. I'm glad I did because I ended up putting this model on my desk where I wasn't originally putting it. And for that, I cut this masking tape, and this was a new process for me, having to cut this masking tape exactly to a very specifically curved place. So this was not easy. So I got blue, and I did blue around the edges, and then I did light blue in the middle, and then I add a little bit of white to do this inside. So it's a nice gradation, just like those silver panels I did. Here you can see the blue, then I did the lighter blue on top with the white. So here we go. We got the engines. You can tell there's a little bit of a mess around there. So I went in with a paintbrush and used the light blue to get all the edges. And this was before I clear coated it, so I could dampen my finger and just scrape off any little tiny imperfections that went over the edge. Here you see how clean it is back there. Got really precise with it. Okay, so here it is. This is with it all done in the engines. So this is with the battery up here. I've gone ahead and tested the lights to see if they work under there, and I've gone ahead and put these together. I haven't glued them together yet. I'm still seeing if this is possible, but this is a good video to see what it all looks like prior to gluing. Here we go. This is Darth Vader's little entrance. This ramp comes down, and you can see Darth Vader there. Let's see. Oh, this was I took this picture because this is where I also noticed that the overhang on this piece, there's overhang, and I didn't really consider that. So I had to go back and paint that white gray and then weather it. So it's not pre-shaded. It's all white gray, so I had to do a good bit of shading for that. Here's Darth Vader glued down. I recommend gluing him down before gluing this piece because he's not easy to glue down. There's nothing, no pegs or anything for you to stick that Darth Vader character onto. So he did actually end up popping off because I had so much trouble gluing this thing down. So I had to glue him down a second time. But it was okay because he's kind of angled to the left here a little bit. And I'm just perfectionist when it comes to that. So I was glad that I got to redo that and get a second chance at gluing it on straight. All right, so you see here, this is right before I painted all white. Here's Darth Vader from the side. This was another thing you really need to be careful about. You need to make sure that Darth Vader is far enough down so that he can bend backwards when the ramp is flat. And because the ramp goes underneath this part right here, and it's got to go like flat. And if Darth Vader's too far towards the door, he's not gonna swing. He's gonna swing back and hit the door, and it's gonna prevent the ramp from going all the way up. So make sure he's kind of far down. Just past the bend. Okay, so this is also showing that this space right here, it is visible. I had painted it black to make sure no light got through, but I painted it white over with paintbrush. All right, so here it is, the landing ramp down or up, I guess. I weathered the landing ramp. Here it is with all the wiring sticking out. I've glued the wings together, or maybe I haven't. I don't remember. I don't think I have. This is all just loosely together. And this was the test. Does it all work? It did. So that was a happy day. So with the display stand and the wings down, it comes very close to the ground. This is it, what it's going to look like. All right, so the gluing. Oh, the gluing was so freaking aggravating. I was going to just throw this stuff up against the wall by the time I was done. This seam right here, this main body, gluing the top and the bottom together, was so difficult. Oh my God. You really need 2 professional vices, maybe 4, because I would get this side glued down and then I'd go to glue this side, and whenever you put a book on this side or whenever you just push it down, this side pops up. And it was just, one night, I think I was down here for like 4 hours trying to glue this thing together, and it just, your hands hurt by the end of it, and everything just, you have to keep re-gluing everything. And at first I was like using sparingly using the glue, the liquid cement. And then I was like, I don't care, just get it on there. And it was just so hard. I did not have these professional clamps at first. So I was rigging up all these ways of doing it. And like, this is an absurd picture to show you how absurd it had to be. Like, you had to have something under the wing pushing up on it to make sure, and you had to do like one little part at a time. Oh, it was so aggravating. It was so aggravating. Ended up needing a heavier weight, so I used the laptop. And you got to put like towels under it so you don't scrape off anything. And so I had to stick this under there to get pressure from below, additional pressure, because there's little segments. There's segments along this thing, and one segment will get glued down. One segment will not. Every other segment will not. So it was just so freaking aggravating. And even with the professional vice clamp thing, a friend let me borrow, you have to put some added substance under it to increase the amount, because I was trying to glue this part right here, and you can push it down with your fingers really easily, but it well, not really easily, you can push it down easy enough. And this is after I've gotten all this done. All of this is already glued, but this part just won't stay down. So I had to put these under there to increase pressure just on this part. If I put the clamp down on the whole part, it wouldn't go down. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. And I just give it up to the bad modeling craftsmanship of the MPC company. But I also kept these side tunnel things, engine tunnel things, off for the longest time, because I was wanting to make sure I got all these little sides glued down first. The top and the bottom glued down first before I put these on, because I was putting lots of stuff on there to keep it down. So get those on. The cockpit is the only thing that actually kind of like snapped in and was easy to get in there. Oh my gosh. Then I got to the guns. Oh my gosh. You definitely need to Dremel out the interior of this thing. I got into so much frustration and trouble with this stupid gun over here. Oh my gosh. You can see some wearing has already started, because I pushed this down and I realized that if I push any harder, I'm not going to be able to get this thing out. And I might not even be able to sandwich it all the way. So at this point, I decided I needed to take this thing apart and Dremel it. I was doing one at a time, so I Dremeled the other one. The Dremeled version of the other gun worked great. And so I was like, oh gosh, I'm just going to Dremel this. So now the problem is taking these out. This is a male peg into a female hole. So I'm trying to pull this thing out so hard. I'm like cutting my fingers. I'm using metal tweezers on both sides, 4 metal tweezers on both sides as wedges. And I'm, like circling it, rotating it, and pushing so hard. And I'm cutting my fingers. Like, these things are not coming out. I'm glad I didn't go any further pushing, because there's no way I would have gotten all the way flush. You can see the weathering. I was trying to be as careful as possible because I just knew I was going to break it, but I didn't. The thing popped off when I finally got it. It just like made this loud pop. I thought I had broken something, so sure I had broken something, but I hadn't. So it was like this moment of like super huge relief that the guns were not broken. And I got some weathering going on on that turret. So yeah, now I glued this on and the cockpit popped off. I was so proud of like how well the cockpit fit in there. I was so happy. But the cockpit popped off twice. And so, yeah, that was just like, what the heck is going on? This is the finished product. And I would say the gluing was the most frustrating part. And what added to that frustration was you get to the end, everything's done, everything's painted. You just have like one little step left and you can't get over it. It is that unsurmountable hurdle. And you were so close, you could just taste it. And yeah. So I was about to go out of my mind. This is the interior of the body, the wiring. You can see here, I forgot to put these shrink wrap tube things on there that shrink with the heat. And that was a big mistake. If those things touch each other, it could short the circuit or prevent it from working. I think I was in a hurry that day and I just forgot about it. And that was a big mistake. Also, I've got some masking tape pulling the wires together. At one point, I was videoing it and photographing it, and it was just sitting here on my desk, and I'm like taking pictures and videoing. I look down at the camera, deleting some pictures, and I look up, and the thing's not flashing anymore. I was like, what the just happened? And it's just like this like soul-crushing moment of like, oh, hell, this thing is broken. What happened? Like, did the circuit overheat and just blow or something? And did I leave it on too long? Because it had been on for about 30 minutes while I was photographing. I had not touched it when it stopped working. So I was just like losing my mind. Felt like my soul had just been crushed because the way these wings have been done, it's going to be very, very difficult to replace the LEDs if they burn out. Everything's glued into place. You can't unsnap things like Bandai models. So everything's glued. It's going to be a huge task to replace the LEDs, I think. So I was like, I didn't even get to spend one full day with this thing operational. And so I wrote the people at Evans Designs. I was trying to figure out what had happened. And while I was sitting there working at my desk waiting for a reply, it started flashing again. I just looked up and was like, holy crap, it's working. I didn't do anything to it. So maybe it just overheated it or something, because it was just sitting there, nothing touching it. And it just started working again. So maybe it had been left on too long. I don't know what's going on, but I'm only going to run it for a few minutes at a time now. But just wanted to say that was the scariest part. This is something new to me. The tester is liquid cement. This was the first time I'd used it on a model because all my models are Bandai and they snap together real easily. So liquid cement, I hardly ever use the gray panel line accent color, but for this model, you really want to have gray because black is way too strong. You're going to have super accented panels if you use black all over. So you want to use gray, trust me. Also used perfect plastic putty for the first time and learned you did not have to sand it off. I made a big mistake by sanding it off. You only want to use like a wet finger or a wet Q-tip. All right, this was the other thing. This was a first for me, doing a cutout of an oval or circular shape like that. And this was the first this was the first attempt right here to get a really nice edge. This was the second, you can tell, because this one's crap and this one's much better. I probably should have redone it, but I just didn't really care, and I knew I could touch it up with a paintbrush. The difference was I believe I used, I used a pencil and pushed down and saw the edge with the pencil as I'm pushing down, and I pushed down pretty hard to kind of create a tear along the edge too, and I used the X-Acto knife, and on this side I just used the X-Acto knife on the model. I should not have done that. On this side I learned from my mistake and I pulled it up. Just this from here up, I pulled up, and I put a little piece of cardboard, like a cereal box flap, under it, and I used that to catch the X-Acto blade, and it came out much better. So I would recommend doing that. Use little pieces of cereal boxes when you lift the tape up, that kind of thing. All right, and that was basically it. It was a really challenging model, but this is one of my favorite models I've built. I've done the Perfect Gray Millennium Falcon. I've done the AT-ST, the AT-AT, the TIE Fighter, the TIE Interceptor, Y-Wing, A-Wing, and this is really an awesome model. So even though it's old MPC, it does have a lot of problems, I would still do it. The things I would do differently, I would sand off the lines on the canopy. Let me get a picture of those. Sand off the lines on the canopy if you really are a stickler for like me. Hold on just a second. Oh, that's the end of it. So let me go back here. Yeah, so sand off the lines right here. These aren't supposed to be there. I would sand off those. I would make sure to pay attention to any overlap, because like every square inch of this thing needs to be painted. There's so much that, no, not that part. So much of it, like you wouldn't expect this part to be showing, but it does. So you need to paint this overlap. I even had a model with me that I could look at, and I missed it. So it's very hard to miss. What else would I do differently? Oh yeah, so this little cutout thing right there, let's go back towards the beginning. This little thing right here, I would cut that out and glue it onto the wing before you prime it, before priming it. So look here, this is after I've primed and pre-shaded. I still hadn't put it in there. I would do that first thing, put that little thing in there because it's not supposed to be there, and use the perfect plastic putty to cover the edges and make it invisible. You can see in the finished product that I did that you can't tell there's any kind of shape there, any kind of cutout, and that's because of the perfect plastic putty. All right, anything else that I would do differently? You have to be very careful with this glass canopy. You paint the inside, not the outside. It's easy to get a scratch on the glass canopy, also on the inside. That, I think, is all I would do differently. All right, this has been the MPC Shuttle Tydirium model kit, and it's actually Lord Vader's shuttle. It's not Shuttle Tydirium because it comes with Vader and 2 Imperial pilots, and if it was Shuttle Tydirium, it would have come with Rebel pilots, and Darth Vader would not be included. All right, so just clearing that up, because that was a little thing that bothered me. I'm not really sure how you would name it other than Shuttle Tydirium, though, so maybe that's the problem they were stuck with. Here you go. This is the Shuttle Tydirium model. Here it is lit, and it flashes. I would go to evansdesigns.com or Model Train Software. It's the same site. If you want to light this model, it's like amazing lit, and I would highly recommend lighting it. It adds a huge degree of difficulty and extra steps, but I definitely recommend doing it. Whenever the light stopped working and I was stuck with a non-lit model, I was like, crap. I was like about to cry. But yeah, so this is it. It's an amazing model. I would highly recommend it. MPC, Shuttle Tydirium, a lot of work, very challenging, very rewarding, very fun. Thanks again for watching. This has been part 3. I'm sorry it went a little longer than I expected, but there's a part 1 and 2. This has been a fun video to make, so I hope it was a little instructional and helped you get inspired to make one of these. It's really fun. All right, thanks for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you later.